Hey guys, welcome back to Lenin 45 volumes. This volume, number 23, consists of Lenin's writings before and during the February Revolution, which saw the Tsar abdicate the throne and the creation of a provisional government in wartime. It's also important to note that World War I is still in full swing, and the so-called Zimmerwald left has articulated its position, and the political fallout within social democracy has created tensions throughout all of Europe. The first two-thirds of this volume consist of Lenin's takes on what he calls imperialist economism, while he also begins to lay the groundwork for revolution within Russia. The last third of the volume contains one of the most famous works by Lenin, Letters from Afar, which is sort of a collection of articles following the February Revolution, which lays out the tasks that lay ahead for the workers. The documents on imperialist economism include the nascent trend of imperialist economism and, quote, a caricature of Marxism and imperialist economism. There's many more, but those are the two main ones. Two works in which he responds to Pyotr Kievsky or Yuri Pyatkov, they go by different names, who argued that in the era of finance capital has made genuine democracy and national self-determination impossible. So he says Marxists should drop such, quote, illusionary slogans and focus only on world socialist revolution. Lenin considered all of this in such talk of, quote, defense of the fatherland and of future national and democratic wars as a slide into opportunism in an imperialist world system. Lenin replied that imperialism actually narrows and distorts democracy, but does not abolish it. So Marxists must still fight for concrete democratic demands. He defined the right of nations to self-determination, including succession and colonial independence, as essential for breaking workers' chauvinism in oppressor nations and winning the trust of oppressed peoples. For Lenin, struggles for democracy and national liberation were key levers for undermining imperialism and fusing national movements with proletarian revolution. Whereas for Kievsky's line, what Lenin says is it really reduced Marxism to abstract, quote, imperialist economism. In Bourgeois Pacifism and Socialist Pacifism, among other works, Lenin argues that socialists are not anti war pacifists for essentially two reasons. The first is that war between imperialists exacerbates and exposes contradictions at home and therefore rallies the working class together against the war. It's a mobilizing moment. The second reason is that such a situation should encourage the working class to take up arms against their oppressors and learn how to fight. As he says, quote, dictatorship is state power based directly on violence. This is a really unique statement from Lenin. Doesn't often talk about the use of violence, and it's important to note that he is talking about violence here in a very specific context under very specific conditions. Violence is not to be used for short term adventurous goals, but is a component of mass revolutionary action. He says, quote, an oppressed class which does not strive to learn to use arms, to acquire arms, only deserves to be treated as slaves. Tired from the war, exhausted from the lack of food, and hungering for peace, on February 27th, 1917, workers took to the streets of Petrograd, joined by the capital's garrison, and left-leaning Duma members seized the railway and telegraph to issue a decree claiming Duma control of the government. Tsar Nicholas II, stranded in Pskov and unable to enter the capital, abdicated the throne just 3 days later. The February Revolution had begun. This February Revolution, according to Lenin, was a continuation of what happened in 1905. 1905 had exposed the malicious intent of the monarchy's carrot and stick policy, and finally the bourgeois and workers had had enough with it. At least some of them had. In Letters from Afar, Lenin points out that some bourgeois members of the new provisional government had done everything in their power to try to actually restore the monarchy under new conditions. but that it was the workers and the capital garrison who surrounded the palace and thereby intimidated Mikhail Romanov, the hopeful regent after Nicholas. Mikhail was like, hell no, I'm not taking that. They're called letters from afar because Lenin was not in Petrograd as the events transpired. Instead, he was in Switzerland, but he was routinely updated on events and ravenously consumed reports and news as it was playing out. The documents outline the task of the party and the proletariat, including the policy of no support to the provisional government very early on, and the creation of a workers' militia to supplant the police and city garrison, and the need to create a centralized state apparatus. All of these policies and more had to include women, as he says explicitly. If women are not drawn into public service, into the militia, into political life, if women are not torn from their stupefying house and kitchen environment, it will be impossible to guarantee real freedom. It will be impossible to build even democracy, let alone socialism. As an aside, I remember some time ago a certain liberal historian argued that the Bolshevik slogan, peace, land, and bread, was a populist slogan to win support of the workers on behalf of the Bolsheviks. According to these documents and letters from afar, and even things before that, the demands for peace, land, and bread had existed long before February, suggesting to me, at least, the authenticity of the demands, not just the power play, as liberal historians might want you to believe. Until next time, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy everything. I wish you all the best. See you in 2026.